Well, hello my friends, it's Shawn Petite and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Look at this yummy goodness we're making today. Here are the supplies that we'll be using and here are the stencils that we'll be using in today's project. So I started my project on an 11 by 14 MDF board and I'm just using regular gesso to get just my first layer down. I needed to cover the wood to kind of prime it and get it ready for the paint and all the goodness that's to come. I wasn't putting down any papers just yet. So I covered that 11 by 14 with my gesso and a palette knife, and I wanted it to be messy. I wanted it to be grungy. I was searching for all the grunge I could get for this background. It is so good. Wait till you see it. So I'm just kind of spreading that gesso out. I'm not making it look pretty or anything like that. And then I grabbed some DecoArt Crackle paint and put that down with my palette knife. And I put it in just certain spots because I knew that I had a design or an idea that I was looking for, and I wanted it to be in certain spots so that it would show up so that you would see it. And oh, does it? It's so good. So I'm just putting that crackle paint down with my palette knife and real roughly. Again, going for as much yummy, grungy goodness as I possibly can. Now I'm coming back in with some Nova Color texture paste. And I said I was going for the grunge, so I'm going in heavy with it now. And I'm just covering the rest of the background with that texture paste now. And I'm going over some of the areas that felt like the wood was still showing. And I'm not trying to be perfect about it. I just want to get it down and covered and make it really textured. Now that it's dry, let it dry overnight. Now that it's dry, that crackle is so beautiful. Oh, and I'm just kind of coming back in again with a little bit more gesso to kind of cover things up a little bit more. And I'm using my Vintage Pattern Duo stencils with the gesso and a brush and just kind of brushing that through. And when you do that, it kind of pushes that gesso up against the sides of the stencil and creates just the most beautiful textured layer. Wait till you see it when it shows up with the paint. Oh, it's so good. But I'm just getting that down and I'm kind of going over areas that felt really light. This is the Abstract Layers 2 stencil, and trying to find some fun pattern and some unexpected pattern for the background. I love how this kind of rainbow look kind of shows up at the bottom. It's just perfect. It's just perfect. I love it. So I let that all dry because it took a while. There was a lot of layers on there. Once it's all dry, I'm coming back in with just some raw umber. Regular raw umber and water. I wanted to do a wash because I wanted it to be really textural, uneven, really, really grungy. Glaze, if you use a glaze, it's smoother, it's softer, and it feels more sophisticated. And that's not what I was going for. I wanted really grungy texture. And the darker I put that raw umber on, the more that texture shows up because it seeps down into all the grooves and all the crevices and all the cracks of the crackle, and it just becomes so beautiful. So I put that down. I will water it down and then I will pick it back up with my brush and just kind of do the dance and kind of layer it up, getting all the edges grungy. Wait till I put the second layer of paint on. Suddenly all of that, all the design, all the texture really show up. And here it comes. It's so good. You can see that kind of rainbow effect down at the bottom. It feels like magic to me every time this happens, when I'm putting my color down and I'm able to kind of reveal that yummy texture. It's so good. And so I'm just going, now that I've got my layers on there, I'm just going back in with a little bit of alcohol, kind of pulling up the paint off of that, all the raised areas. Look at how it just shines. It's so good. So I'm just kind of now creating an area with water of where I think I want my first layer of acrylic ink to go. And the acrylic ink that I'm using is called Muted Gray, but it's not gray really. It's so gorgeous. But I put that water down so that I could get that pooling and blooming, and then I'll kind of move it around a little bit. But the acrylic ink is wonderful to use, especially on texture, because it immediately, you can see where it just kind of settles in around all of the texture and everything on this piece. It's just so beautiful. When you're using acrylic ink, remember that it always dries lighter than when it's like right now it feels really dark, and I will add to it because I know that once it dries, it will lighten up. And I'm just kind of creating a design that I think will show up underneath some of the papers that I'm going to put on and some of the other elements. And I don't want it to be straight. I want it to have movement and have fun. But all that texture from the stenciling, look at how it's just showing up so beautifully. Some of it's going to get covered up, but not all of it. So now that it's dry, you can see how much lighter it is. And I'm just grabbing some papers that truly represent the inspiration behind this piece. All the papers represent something: softness, boldness, all my loves, different things like that. I'll share more about that at the end of the video, the inspiration behind this. I was very selective with my papers, and I only used a few in a certain area because I knew I wanted to add to the design. So now I am stenciling with my acrylic, and this is the first time I've ever done this, so I wasn't exactly sure how it was going to turn out. And it works beautifully, and I love how it looks because it has that watercolor, very transparent look to it, and yet it stayed in place very well. I did add a little bit of water to it because it was so in place. I wanted it to kind of seep out a tiny bit. I didn't want my shapes to be perfect. But I will stencil with my acrylics again. I will say that every time that I stenciled with my acrylics, and I used my brush, I made sure my brush was dry first and then put my acrylic ink on, and then I would wet it a little bit. The other wonderful thing about acrylics is that you can mix them and make your own colors. So I wanted a real kind of muted green, kind of olivey green. And so I grabbed some of the blue that I had used and some yellow oxide, I believe it is. And I mixed this wonderful green. Oh, it's so beautiful. And now I'm just kind of bringing this whole design from the top to the bottom, making it feel balanced a little bit. And I do top to bottom because it kind of grounds your focal point. All of the supplies will be listed on the blog, and the link to the blog will be down below in the YouTube description box. And I'm just sprinkling some of that color and kind of bringing that design out a little bit, and not keeping it, making it feel like it's expanded a little bit and not so just in that one area. I'm coming back in with my Stabilo All pencil, and I chose my Stabilo All pencil first because I wanted to keep with that kind of watery, watercolor, acrylic ink look, but I wanted to really kind of accent and define my focal point. And again, remember that it looks really dark right now, but once it dries, it's much, much lighter. And I didn't want it to be like strategic lines around the design, so I feathered them out with some water. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of some transparent raw umber because it's just so good. And now I'm coming back in with the abstract layers stencil that I used for the large shapes, and just adding some marks and some fun and some play to it. And I'm using acrylic ink in carbon black. Whites and blacks are always kind of balancing and neutralizing to me, so it always feels more complete and finished when I add some whites and some blacks. I'm coming back in with just some sketchy lines just to kind of further accent my my shapes, add some interest and definition. And I'm just bringing some of my white in, and that white is just that right pop of focus and attention to draw your eye to the focal point. And this is a China marker, just adding some lines and some swirly lines, different things like that, some marks. I wanted a little bit more white. I wanted more focus And so my China marker was great, and it's great for some softer details, but I couldn't get it dark enough. And so I will pick up a soft pastel, and as soon as I did that, I was like, yes, that is it. And then I will shade around the edges with a black soft pastel, and that's it, my friends. Super easy, but truly, truly meaningful. I hope you stick around for the conversation at the end. It's so, so good. Oh, I found a new book, and I'm sharing it with you and what inspired me in it. And again, all the supplies will be listed on the blog, and the link will be down below in the YouTube description box. If you enjoyed today's project, subscribe and like and all those wonderful things, and I will see you next week. Well, hello, my friends, and happy Sunday to you. Oh my goodness, I had so much fun with this. And I decided to put this last little word on here. I wasn't going to because I thought it would be too much. But that is the theme of today's project, is too much. And I decided to just do it. To just go for it, and not worry about it being too much, because that is what I'm learning. And to just go with my gut. And I don't want it to feel just kind of stuck on there, so I'm going to just kind of add a little couple marks here so that it looks like it's part of the piece. There we go. And that's it. So much fun with this, and oh my goodness, stenciling with the acrylics, how fun, and oh, I so want to do it again. I have so many ideas and things. I can't wait to play more with that. So good. Let's see. There isn't a collage pack that I use. There wasn't anything particular. The stencils that I used will be listed on the blog, and all the supplies and everything that I used will be listed on the blog, and the link to the blog is down below in the YouTube description box. And I don't think I have anything else to tell you except that this was just so much fun, and I just played and played, and I just loved it. The background, so everything has such meaning. So let me grab, hang on one second. Okay, so inspiration behind this piece. I started reading a new book. It's called Professional Troublemaker. Isn't that awesome? The Fear Fighter Manual. And I have shared this many times. I deal with fear every day. That's my personality type. It's something that I work at, and I've overcome a lot and all that kind of stuff. Whoops, I put that away. But I just started reading it, and it's like the second chapter. And the author is Lovey Jones, and what a great name. I want my first name to be Lovey. But anyway, the second chapter is Be Too Much. And it says, we fear being judged for being different. And it just struck such a chord with me, because I cannot tell you how many times I have been told I am too much of something. I'm too quiet, I'm too in my head, I'm too artsy, fartsy. I mean, I've had all kinds of terms about being an artist, to this, to that. But she goes on to say, being accused of being too much is to be told to take up less space. And it just, I mean, over and over, it just continued to resonate with me. This is only the second chapter, so I cannot wait to get deeper into the book. But it says you aren't supposed to constantly shapeshift to make those around you feel better about their own insecurities or their failures. Your job is to not be a chameleon. but to be true to who you are. And sometimes that means you're too much for someone, too much something. And I've been, like I said, I've been told I'm too quiet, I'm too in my head, I'm too smart, I'm too so many things. I'm too fat, I mean, just I mean, everybody can fill in the blank as to what they've been told. And I can't believe, it just really constantly comes back to me sometimes when we are in self-doubt, when I'm in self-doubt, how some of those things that people have said come back and really impact me and, you know, play over. So anyway, as I was kind of reading through the chapter, I knew that because it had those few lines, well, that whole chapter did, touched me so much that I wanted to create from it. And so I kind of wrote out what were the things that I have been told. And, oh, and she says, she goes on to say that, which is what I love the most, she said, most often the things that we are too much of are our superpowers, are the things that we are good at, are the things that we should take to the world and show the world and shine and use for good. You know, there are things that I'm definitely too much of that I have to work on, but usually those things that I need to maybe evaluate and relearn some things are the things that aren't good for anybody else, including myself. But then there are those things that we are too much of, that are who we are our offering to the world, our way to make a difference, our way to make things better, to help people. Those are usually our superpowers. And so I made a list of all the things that I have been told over the years of the things that I am too much of, or you know, too quiet, too shy, too artsy, too in my head, too emotional. Oh man, too, you know, because I cry at movies and I take everything in. I internalize everything and kind of analyze everything. But part of that is my superpower, because I take that and I bring it to the canvas, and I get to share it. And I get to encourage people with it. So all of those things that I made my list of, and some were things that weren't good for anybody, including myself. And those are the things that I need to, you know, work on. And the other things, I just looked at them and really tried to embrace them as who I was, and how empowering it was to accept that and to know that this is who I am, my superpower, and how I can show up in the world as myself, being bold or quiet or whatever, or too much of something, and know that that is something that will be used for good, to change lives, to change my life, to change my family's lives, whatever it is. And so each piece of paper in here, actually the background, you know, I thought about art, and I have been told I'm not a technical artist and all those different kinds of things. But I thought about me being just me. And I love this grunge. The grunge is who I am, the texture and all that. And then the bold colors is that confidence, that power of knowing who I am, and that even though who I am might be too much for someone, that it's just right for some other people, so that I can use those things to make a difference. And so all these different pieces of paper in here are all things that represent to me the things that I have been told that I am too much of. The colors represent owning that too much of the things that I am, that I can use as my superpower and change lives and encourage and uplift and all those things. That's the color. And the grunge is another part of who I am, and embracing that and feeling emboldened, bold, to just be me. And, you know, for me, it's always a constant work of embracing who I am. And I think it always will be, because we grow and we shift and we learn and we age, and hopefully we gain some wisdom along the way. But I think it's always a journey of embracing who we are, especially in the different seasons. Oh my gosh. Who I was in my 20s, oh, yuck. And who I am now, wow, such a difference. Partly because of that work and owning who I am and embracing who I am and continually doing that over and over. So I decided to put too much in because I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it being too much. And this, just like art, it doesn't resonate with everyone, but to some people it truly touches them. It truly inspires them. They see something. And that's how we are our own masterpiece. And if we're pleasing to everyone, we're really pleasing to none, right? So that is this piece, this inspiration. Oh, I can't wait to get into the rest of the book. And when I get through it, I'll let you know how it was. You know, not every chapter is always great in a book, but I've had some really great ones that I've been reading. So I'll let you know about the book once I get through it. So that, my friends, is my inspiration this week. So I hope that your Sunday is restful and peaceful, and I hope that you own your too muchness. I hope that you smile at it, that you embrace it, that you know that whoever you are, all that too muchness, that that's your superpower, because you can use it for good. You can use it to change people, to help encourage people, to help change the world, to help whatever it is. That's your superpower. So I hope that you embrace that and embrace your whole you, your too muchness. All right, my loves, have a wonderful Sunday, and always, always know that you are loved.